All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something with a name that's, well, it's a bit of a mouthful. Echinococcus multilocularis. I know, but trust me, its story is like something out of a medical thriller, and it's happening a lot closer to home than you might imagine. Let me just kick things off with a question for you. Picture this. Something is growing inside your liver. It's expanding slowly but surely for 5, 10, maybe even 15 years, and you don't feel a single thing. It gets so far along that even doctors might look at it and think it's cancer. So what on earth could be that stealthy? Well, surprise. It's not a tumor. It's actually a parasite. The real culprit here is the larval stage of a tiny little tapeworm, that same one with the long name, Echinococcus multilocularis. This thing causes a really serious disease called alveolar echinococcus, and that's exactly what makes it so incredibly dangerous. Okay, so if we're going to understand the threat, we first have to get to know the organism itself, right? Let's take a look at what this silent invader actually is on a biological level. First off, it's what's called an endoparasite. All that means is it lives inside its host, not on the outside. And, we're not talking about some simple single-celled protozoan here. No way. This is a metazoan. That means it's a complex, multicellular animal with different parts doing different jobs. So think less like a little bacterium and more like a tiny, complex creature that's pulling off a pretty sophisticated biological takeover from the inside. You can think of this chart as its biological address. I mean, look at it. It's in the animal kingdom, and then it gets more specific, all the way down to the class Cestoda. Yep, the tapeworms. And that classification is so important because it puts it in a family of parasites that are famous for these incredibly complex life cycles. And those life cycles, they almost always depend on a predator-prey relationship to keep going. And that complex life cycle is absolutely crucial to understand. The survival of Echinococcus multilocularis hinges on this whole drama that plays out in the wild. It's a story with two main characters. You've got a definitive host, which is where the parasite becomes an adult, and then you have an intermediate host, which is where it grows as a larva. And this diagram really shows you the whole process beautifully. The main cycle, the one that keeps this thing going, happens between carnivores like foxes, they're the definitive hosts, where the adult worm hangs out, and small rodents. The rodents act as the intermediate hosts, where that larval stage gets to grow. So let's just break this down step by step. First, you have adult worms in a fox's gut. They produce these tiny, microscopic eggs that get shed in its poop. Then a little rodent comes along and accidentally eats those eggs. Inside that rodent, the eggs hatch and form these tumor-like larval cysts, usually in the liver. The whole cycle completes when another fox eats that infected rodent. Now, here's the kicker for us. Humans can accidentally wander right into the middle of this cycle. We can become an unintended intermediate host just by ingesting the eggs from something like contaminated soil or maybe unwashed fruits and veggies. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, that's just a problem out in the wild, right? Fox eats a mouse, what's that got to do with me? The thing is, this parasite's territory is actually expanding. It's moving into new places, which brings it into much closer contact with people. Historically, you'd only find this parasite in certain spots in the northern hemisphere. Think Central Europe, parts of Asia, North America. But over the last few decades, it's been on the move. It's spreading, popping up in new areas, including countries where it was never really a concern before. Let's take the Netherlands as a perfect example. Back in the late 90s, scientists were monitoring the local fox population, and what they found was a huge surprise. The parasite had set up shop in 2 totally separate areas. And the prevalence, that's just the percentage of infected foxes, it showed that this wasn't some fluke. No, this parasite was there to stay. So finding it in the wildlife was like a huge warning bell going off. And then, in 2008, that warning became a reality. The very first human case that was acquired inside the Netherlands was confirmed. That's the moment the threat officially crossed over from being a wildlife issue to a real public health problem. This brings us to a really massive challenge. I mean, how do you fight an enemy that can hide inside you for more than a decade? It's the super slow-growing nature of this parasite that makes diagnosing it so difficult. I mean, the incubation period is it's astonishingly long. We're talking between 5 and 15 years. And during that whole silent phase, the larval mass is growing in the liver, spreading through it almost exactly like a cancer. But the person feels totally fine. So by the time symptoms, like say a pain in your side, finally show up, the disease is often already really advanced. Because of that long silent period, doctors have to use a whole toolkit to figure out what's going on. They might start with imaging, like a CT scan, which can show this characteristic mass, sometimes with little bits of calcification. Then they'll use super-specific blood tests, like one called the M2 ELISA, which looks for the antibodies your body makes to fight the parasite. And for the final, absolute confirmation, they can use something like a Western blot or a PCR test on a tiny piece of tissue to find the parasite's unique DNA fingerprint. When it comes to treatment, you have to be aggressive. Both the international WHO guidelines and the Dutch guidelines agree on the main goal: radical surgery to get the whole parasitic mass out. That's usually combined with an antiparasitic drug called albendazole. But what's really interesting is that there are some subtle differences in their strategies. For example, the Dutch guidelines specifically say to take the drug with a high-fat meal because it helps your body absorb more of it. They also have a standard practice of a 28-day course of the drug before surgery to try and shrink the mass and stop it from spreading when they operate. And for those really tough cases where surgery just isn't an option, treatment becomes a lifelong course of this medication to keep the parasite from growing. So, with a disease this serious, prevention is everything, right? The good news is, now that we understand that life cycle we talked about, we actually have the power to break the chain of transmission. And the prevention tips are all pretty straightforward and practical stuff. The eggs are in the soil, so number 1, always wash your hands really well after gardening or working outside. If you're someone who likes to forage for wild berries or mushrooms, you've got to wash them thoroughly. And hey, for all you pet owners out there, try to keep your dogs and cats from hunting rodents. And make sure they're on a regular deworming schedule. They can be a bridge for the parasite to get closer to our homes. Now, looking ahead, there's actually some really exciting news on the horizon. Researchers aren't just focused on treatment, they're actually working on a vaccine. The ultimate goal here is to create an oral vaccine that could stop the infection before it even starts. I mean, that would be a complete game changer in fighting this disease. And just so you know, for full transparency, all the information we've gone over in this explainer was put together using a Gemini deep search. If you're a data nerd like me and you want to really dive into the nitty-gritty of the studies, we've got a complete list of all our sources for you in the Notebook LM document that's linked right down in the description. And that really leaves us with one last big thought. This whole story of Echinococcus multilocularis is such a powerful reminder of how connected environmental health and our own health really are. As our world and the wild animal world continue to overlap more and more, it really makes you stop and wonder, what other silent invaders might be out there, just waiting in the wings? All right, that's all we have for this explainer. If you found this interesting or helpful, do us a favor and subscribe to the channel. We do deep dives like this all the time. And hey, we really want to hear from you, so definitely leave your feedback and any questions you have in the comments below. Thanks for watching.